organize this and are doing the reading are a major part of our audience here, and we're glad for that. This is actually stunning to me. You know, this has been well over 2 years now since either Chax Press or Pog has sponsored a poetry reading where people were actually in the room or the patio or in the space. And so, and I don't think we've ever done one outdoors. So a little rusty, and please forgive us for that rustiness, or maybe appreciate our rusticness. Ordinarily, for Pog readings, the host, like me, would go through a list of about 60 thank yous, but since this reading is sponsored by both Chax Press and Pog, and we'd go over 100 thank yous, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say thank you to all our institutional patrons and all our individual patron sponsors, and oh my gosh, we need you. We need you. There have been some unique opportunities getting through the COVID period with emergency funding, but without individuals, we would all be sunk too. So if you are interested in that, you can talk to me later, or you can certainly find the places to contribute at pogartstucson.org and or at chax.org. And being this is the giving season, it's a good time. Before we really begin, I do want to acknowledge the indigenous peoples of all the lands that we call home, where Pog and Chax are based, the ancestral home of the Tohono O'odham and Pasqua Yaqui nations. I hope you take a moment this evening, soon, to just reflect on how, in the wake of a history of violence and dispossession, we can move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. And I think now I am just going to turn this over to Lisa Martin to introduce the first poet reading. I'm going to turn the microphone down, and hopefully I've got it right. And thank you all for being here.
I gotta find where Maryrose is in this crowd. Maryrose. I met Maryrose in 2018 when Charles, who's out there somewhere, taught a poetry class at Pima, and I was taking it, and Maryrose was kind of bopping in and out, and I really liked her style and the feedback she gave budding poets like myself. Then I started going to a bunch of Pog readings, and you see what happened. I'm on the board now, so they have a way. They'll reel you in. It was great getting to know Maryrose and Charles and Cynthia and David and everybody involved with Pog. Maryrose's friendship is really a gift. Her poetic voice is very musical, earthy, rich, with sort of a Celtic divination sensibility. Her work is in step with her heart and her way of being in the world, and she rides that to the edge and looks over, jumps over, explores the way she dances with abandon. I have happily delved into the Book of Ocean, and the name of this intersection is Frost. There is much left for me to explore of her work. Many of you known her longer than I have, know more about her years in Portland, organizing readings and events with Spare Room as a founding member. Fortunately for me and many others, she's now here in Tucson, where the usually dry, hot, sunny desert is easier on her than the damp of Portland. So we're blessed to have her here and here tonight to share her work. Welcome, Maryrose.
good. You're sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Maryrose Larkin, and I did a very poor job of planning my reading tonight. So I think I'm going to just read things chronologically. This is not a magic book. And as part of my chronology, I would like to read the Whimsy Daybook 2007. I would like to read It Was Imaginary Holidays for Every Day, published with a New Yorker font. Paintings by Nita Hill. I published it in my backyard. So I'm going to read November. No, I'm going to read December because we're in December. Sunday, December 1st. Just the word December makes me tired. Sunday, December 2nd, Priest Run Week. December 3rd, Enduring Torments with Joy for 42 Years. December 4th, United States Eats Illinois, 1818. December 1st, Please Don't Beat Me with That Myrtle Stick because I am drunk again. The 6th, My Mouth is Full of Night Balls. The 7th, The Earth's a Big Blue Marble when you see it from up there. December 8th, Happy Birthday, Muses. December 9th, American Maverna Day. December 10th, 3341. December 11th, She Became the Spirit of the Wired, 1998. December 12th is Banana and Grapefruit Sacrifice Day. December 13th, Extra Cat Fur for knitting mittens is available in this space. December 14th, Pointy Hat Day. December 15th, Will It Ever Be Sunny Again? December 16th, Tea Invents America, 1773. December 17th, Drink That Mead You Made Last Summer. December 18th, This Is Where We Fly. December 19th, Hug an International Day. December 20th, Mystery Prey rewritten and it becomes The Matrix. December 21st, The Sun Enters the Sign of the Semicolon. December 22nd, It's Time to Worship Those Chimney Gnomes. December 23rd, the World Weekly News reported that the Lincoln Tunnel is made out of Lincoln logs. December 24th, Pluto's Kiss. December 25th, Holiday Authenticity. December 26th is Wren's Day. December 27th is Santa Sleeps Week. December 28th is Romantic Survivor. Will Coleridge be voted off the island? December 29th, United States Eats Texas, 1845. Sunday, December 30th. Don't forget the mail-in rebate on this year that you need to send in. And December the 31st, Identity Bingo Appreciation Month ends. Those are imaginary holidays. So from there, I'm going to read a tiny, 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 tiny book, bit out of the Book of Ocean, which some people like to read their work over and over again, but I'm most likely to publish it and kill it, publish it and kill it, publish it and kill it. But during these long times when I can't write because I'm a different person or whatever the fuck happens, whatever the heck happens, sometimes I should read my books because whoever wrote those, it wasn't me, very good writer. I'm going to read the Book of Hours. I opens the idea of sky as agreement. Construct the new. Here a horizon line. There the other plane. Corn silk cloud yields pale to jasmines and variations in gray, and hisses on asphalt. A decline to point. My hand tethers the departure of flight. White stippled, psycho-cerulean glimpse, cataract and green gesture. The earth and I begin. Terse. 8 a.m. seen and written under floats up onto the screen, is perceived, and the promise of soft leaf and tangle, and the optical quality of Venetian blinds, and the sky that is underneath, the space between an object sense of what is. Sext. Because the sky is a strange broken mirror, strangest sky, because I cannot splinter off of the old words. It converses. Blue ravage, the winter eye, a canvas heaven. Known. This prism mutates, tigered and horizon, a dilemma in afternoon milkly descend, garbles, bus drivers to wolves, fingers to scales, heats wavers. Vespers, outcome, pressure, horizon, language, motion, sky. A last pleasure, a reduction until the sky is an internal point. Stuttered sun, stars tethered at evening's edge. Indifference is the eye's bitter carnival. Compline. Circles under the eye, variations and light and the word blue. Blue and blue laughter and dissolved, hands swim off cerulean, color flying off snow, word blue swims in, is color tossed in moon, eyes circle, a color of bruise, word tossed eye moons, in eyes tossed the hand is bruised. Insides are lapis light, variations of light, the moon in snow. Sky is bruised, sky and snow and thumb bridles, thumb the color of the moon flying. Tinted snow and moon, highway. Snow the color of moon and blue swimming, hands clench, snow swims in sky. Word blue trembles and halts. Eyes swim in, swim to, blue silence. The other thing I'm going to read from the Book of Ocean is a really problematic poem if you don't like really problematic poetry. It's called Eating Music, and it's actually about when Eric and I lived in Kansas, we got a $100 piano off the street. And I would come home for work and I would try to teach myself the piano by using Bartok's little piano teaching pieces. The microcosmos. And I was terrible, still am terrible at learning the piano. All I have, some people have musical talent. I have sheer force of will. It didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I don't play the piano, but I did write this poem, and it's called Eating Music, and it's about the motions one goes through to learn how to try to become a musician, which I have obviously failed at. Eating music. To enter marks something again, the things one gives much know. It is, thus is, over a legend to substitute for it. It is over playing the piano, must the piano. It plays over it, the marking someone. The hand is replacing the individual again. Is the things the hand is replacing a particular double of body. To still rather the things of that one gives in that one is consequentially in. Music enters. It is the game of the plan. Must the plan, it plays, it are rather still the things, it gives the double quantity of body, streaming the legend, the hand for the particular, the taken. Always the double details taken to enter mark some still thing the hand is exchanging for along with the experience and the measure of order after this, which it begins, which a department is, which is required in the hand, which the messes is, which the continued being the markings is, which division is demanded of it, the past stream of morning, experience crossing over, and he was meant to measure the hand of that one, produces music, a worked object. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to read the last two. Music is the standard meant of him, obtained with the past and into that very morning, the impression, a measure about the piano, of the piano, cut upwards, dreaming. This representative word is advanced in sections. Music beyond the city meant they of it, time and beyond. Above it, the inscription, starting as, what is a required division? A hand in movement is an artifact. What remains were the copies, the marks it manufactures. The causes, the time, this division, with the impression that what remains ruptured is past dreaming, reversing on the face of the face, included on, of, the measurement required, the meaning of to her, the meaning of us to her, was an annotation. That if the movement directly for each new marks, that becomes the action, that becomes the meaning, that becomes the meant of it. The time over here, above him, the notation is required, division. The hand is an object that begins. What is and asks division? The hand moving straight through music, beyond the causes. And that is what pre-2009 looks like. And then I'm going a little bit from the intersection. Oh, the other thing about eating music is that I have a special relationship with Google Translate. So a lot of times I write my poems in English, then I translate to them Italian, and then I translate the Italian to Spanish, and then I translate the Spanish to Russian, and then I bring it back to English, and that's something that I work on and edit. But so much of the time, the word piano would turn into the word plan when you did that. So a lot of the words that are actually piano were plan when it was made. So this book, the name of this intersection of frost is two long poems. One of them is in verse, which I'm not going to read, and one is called The Late Winter 30. And I've talked to a lot of people about this. The Late Winter 30, for the last 30 days of one winter, I wrote every day 300 words or half an hour. Following year, I edited it into 30 poems that really were about late winter's internal and external weather in Portland, where I used to live. I was planning on writing a late autumn 30 here. Clearly that didn't happen. Perhaps we will try for early winter 30 for Tucson. But I'm going to read a little bit of that. I would read it all to you, but instead I'm only going to read the parts I like. The pressure of facing the Y section when I wanted horizon. Pressure dropped winter angle face and spring 50% pushed through the gray, replacing from the top and patchy chaos. Winter, no winter or late winter, shiver, cover, and some can never. Late one in whirl, no opposite morning, cross-struck pink, change insoluble. Atmosphere east facing, mothering under but not mother, not cinders, not mocking, not pushed into wings. Suffer late, other petals synoptic, surface shadow and 50%, no, 30%, no, 30 pansies. Light, silver light on the fence line, rain the written. Look again. Shadow caddis, shadow chaos, train chaos, expecting never. I'm partly a mouthpiece, partly another, partially indifferent, winter, winter, Dodger, circumcumulus, or every, or suffer, or mouth, or late 30 passed over, Doppler impossible, and she pushed into the shadow and it pushed back. Don't look. Partly partially, partly window, partly fractured in land and in body, system partly mixing up and pinked out. And out again, and horizon, and violet, violet unsettling, and rusted more, and in again, and changed clearly, and no east winter, and no east river, and no cerulean 30, and gone again, and pedaled that, and out again, and pedaled this, and atmosphere awake, and surface startle, and in again, and gone again, and yellow-gray, and moving white, and denominator, and ruination, and out again, and in again, and shadow throat, and lifeline, and mission two, and chain link fence, and cinder faced, and gone again. I'll be the 50% chance. I'm going to read one more part of this if I can find the part I like. There's a part about the ruination or ruination fence, but I can't find it, so I'll just read the last poem. One of the coolest things about this poem for me, which was really exciting and also really scary, is that I always do, when I write long things, I always do concatenation, where I actually count all the number of times words appear. This poem only has, which is like 30 pages, only has 417 actual words in it. And that's like counting sky and skying and skied, all as different words. So anyways, 417, I've got to beat that. Still morning, pansy face, cinder, scratum, swim, close curved, bloom pink document, suffer no power lines, suffer no blue mission, suffer my internal unsettled atmosphere, no sky-eyed facing east to the visible, and why haze late winter 30, why cross section rhododendron, why whirl, why not other mother, sorrow shade wings, sun, vellum, and river violet, lifting wild, anesthetic shiver in her life. 2 daffodils, 4 crocus, but she is not a garden heart and cirrostatus covering, expecting late winter, dark yolk, blooming cinder blocks, a scattered cistern, changing under ember crows, horizons, wet time, struck early frond, yearly crocus late, primrose push, the scales are moving, whipland, violet, white spring, temperature is inserted. The winter south side is rusted shut, perspective adrift, the petals colored awake and sunside sided and late, and people remain or rain or weathering season horizon. I'll never spring stretching in one step over the other mother fence. All surface and silver ruination, a snow startle, a rage petal, an ash throw a denominator or opposite fence line, a 50% chance, or bluish, or grayish, or clearly struck. So there's a couple of actually things in progress, but the last 2 things are before I got sick. And one is this poem, Marrowing, which I'll read a little bit of it. It's for anyone who actually likes these sorts of things. It's actually based on a book called 3 Steps on the Ladder Towards Writing by Helene Sixou. And then I'm going to read from my lovely Chax book press, which Charles so generously printed for me because he's such a nice guy and he gave my poetry a home, of which I'm eternally grateful. Let me read a little Marrowing. I have slow hands, so you'll have to wait and watch me fumble here. Thank you for so much. Breath and effort, my face turned blue. The opposite of chaos is action itself, rigor or comfort or my joy ascending greater than. How he becomes a part is explained, and I'm not breathing. Time, puncture, hold joy amok. Less than. H for ash, an arm turn. H for ladder, bloom amok. Not rigor, and H for self-eyed, comfort or greater than. Walking as walking, atop must night, stepping where she begins, where I fell bounding and resembled. A dream is punctured, voracious and image, how the late goes outward or still the latter shaking, risk other, mirror other, amok self. Now a little bit of, how am I with time? Oh, you're plenty of time. Evidently, I have plenty of time. We're just going to pretend I have plenty of time. I hope I'm not boring the hell out of you. One of the nice things about poetry readings is if you hate the writer, it ends really quickly. I don't know either, but I'm going to read a teeny bit more. So this is my beautiful Chax book called The Identification of Ghosts, and also it is available for sale on the table. Also, the beautiful Cynthia Miller made the cover. It's a detail from one of her paintings, and she's the awesomest painter. So this is a book about my father who had cancer and died. And what I learned while he was dying was that 1 in 8 people do not believe they're going to die up until the time they're dead, because they cannot imagine it's going to happen to them. He was one of those guys. And so this book also has the charm of, like, I wrote a lot of things about my dad because it was really like upsetting, and I write to process and I don't read to process, but anyways, so I did all these things. I put it together, and I was supposed to put together a chapbook for little green leaves, little red leaves. Sorry, I'm dyslexic. But when I put it together, it became this book. And they were like, well, we can do a little, but we really can't do it. And then Charles was so much happy to publish it. But I put it together in like 6 hours of all these pieces. So anyways, there's a lot of rabbits in it. I always think of rabbits as prey. So the energy that released can become damage. Saint Black Rabbit, are your lungs a vessel or a fluster or a ghost that resembles you in your half-blue eyes as chamber de clapgo? Black Rabbit, were his symptoms questions waiting for an answer, or 4 masked men in an empty house? Muse in a half-shroud. One can be immortal. This perception is called a malfunction. Mixed skull and shavings pressed into the wall. Survival is where I read into the storm hours all to almost, where the word no is the prime opponent. Only this far, and survival is a cipher. Even when translated, it occurs to people, distorted, sometimes drastic, and a stray, outlived right. Do you think the dead sound more like sand or water? The sentence apart. The intention under gloss, I'm sounding out a river as forever. Regarding sleep, a muse is buckled down into a room, one eye closed. Almost morning, and specifically as an outlived right, a sorrow cipher pitch, rising on a variation on to the next mistake. How I lost the wiki of how one can be immortal and human at once, but no one. How could one, ever one, is more likely to, his lungs at 90% squamous, how I continue to believe. He was born a ghost. Intubate and shroud, unwound in fame, he bore it upon his palm. Rabbit, black rabbit, back rabbit, prey dreaming the patterns of the dark, indications of the animal you may have been shooting, may you find intuition and grace. Saint of Arrows, and also Saint of the Shadow of Arrows, and the shadows, Saint Root. He bore heart apocrypha shredded, clavicle moths. He bore wings erupting, lung all shadow and no potentials, evoked almost as empire leaning into the other side. Only this far, and I wanted to be astray. Even when translated, definition is a hollow where we intubate the living and shroud the dead. How I continue to believe in macular seas and metallic white, the broken grist, there is no boundary between 3 and 1 ghost. From one to the next mistake, an apple tree. Slew rabbit and continually grieving, kindred, right kindred and into empire, a name blossoms under. Sparrow separates its wings into sentences, arrows, and essential knowledge. Sparrow gives way as a specimen, wanderer or being awake and grace. House of hours. House of arrow, arrow, house of unseen sparrow, house of sorrow. Nature loves a crisis as an apple tree loves apples, loves automobiles. Rabbit and sparrow, written as a tragedy, how she wanted to be astray. Escaped saint of the arrows, escaped moon. Do the dead sound out to the river? But we no one trust in touch and hazard. Having no or having wandered, may you find. Thank you so much.
Oh, you don't have to record this. But Pog likes to create an environment that is as safe as possible. And if anyone here has any issues, suggestions, problems, please see one of our directors, of which there are 4 or 5 here tonight, if you want to hold up your hand and let us know if anything happens. Yes. Okay, sure. While the fire's building up and while people are still over there, Chax Press began in 1984. It's primarily a book publisher and a book arts maker, making books by hand as well as publishing paperback books. Have published about 250 books by this point in time, so been around a while. Publishing work, I think that probably most people in the poetry communities would consider towards innovative and experimental work, but not entirely. It's a pretty wide range, actually. Pog began in 1996, and it was begun by Cynthia Miller, who's over there, and Tenny Nathanson, and myself, and I'm not quite sure who was right there at the beginning. I think that might be the bulk of it. Now has had different people on the board. Generally presents and has since 1996 about one reading per month from September through April or May, and then takes breaks for the summer, and has also presented artistic and poetry collaborations, musical and poetry collaborations, and a few workshops and symposia. Okay, so I'm gonna now get started here. We are actually here tonight because Joanna Fuhrman got in touch with me a few months ago and said she was coming through, and I like her work so much that I just said, great, yes, you can give a reading here. And then as soon as I got away from that email, I sort of gulped and said, man, we haven't done a reading since 2019. What are we going to do? And, I had my doubts about these public readings again right up to today, but I'm glad we're here. It was marvelous to hear Maryrose, and it's great to host Joanna here. Joanna herself is a lifelong New Yorker and is deeply embedded in poetry communities there, but she gets around too. This is at least her second time here that I know about. And
my third.
third.
Time with Pong, and then once I read at Maggie's bookstore.
Oh,
Back in the day.
yes. At the Maggie's bookstore? At the Casa? Oh, Biblio, okay. Maggie Golston?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was supposed to be here, but she got swamped.
Okay. And she also teaches and actually coordinates the Introduction to Creative Writing program at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. She has several books of poetry out, including this one relatively recently, To a New Era, which I like thinking of in two different ways, at least one of which is, let's go there, let's go to a new era. But the other one is like holding a nice glass of champagne up with a toast saying, to a new era. and then drinking that, because we need that new era, certainly. One thing I'm encountering in this new book of Joanna's a lot is an approach to, whether it's the subject or the material or the poem, certainly, in a way that goes through the cracks, along the side. At one point, she speaks of quarter tones, in between kind of tones. And I think, it participates in something that's, I think is a very valuable way of thinking about it that I've been hearing for the last couple of decades, maybe, and still am, and I hope it's okay to say this, but queering the language. Instead of simply taking it straight, but taking it in a way that changes it a little bit and changes your perspective on it. And I want to look just at the very end of one poem in here called Household Tips for a New Era, where she says, write down what you see, laminate and label, invent a new language out of the sounds the vacuum cleaner makes when it's unplugged. Hand wash your ideals. Believe in fragments, cloud language, glass doorknobs, and quarter tones. So you can kind of see the way it messes a little bit with how you think about the thing you're talking about and opens your eyes and wakes up those ears a little bit by doing so. On the way over here tonight, I was listening to a CD I hadn't listened to in a long time by Eric Dolphy, who, there's some jazz buffs in Pong and Chax I know, who almost approaches each musical phrase from the side or over the top or underneath. And I can think of nothing nicer to say about Joanna, that she makes poetry in a similar way that Eric Dolphy makes music. So please welcome Joanna Fuhrman.
Thank you so much for taking this chance on an in-person reading after so many Zoom readings. I'm really grateful, and I'm really grateful to Maryrose and to David and Lisa and to Cynthia and to Charles. And what? Oh yeah, Thomas, yes. This is a beautiful space, incredible. So I'm gonna start with a poem from The Year of Yellow Butterflies, which came out like 6 years ago, and then I'll read from the new book and then a few poems that are newer. Cybergeddons. A woozy relic, live streams, a private apocalypse. You try to forget the womb's tundras, their skyward, expanding cemeteries. Try to be the technician of flammable whammies. Try the mission alligator, the almost inevitable, audible pineapple. The sand collects in ears, the beach burrows, ravenous eyebrows. Even if everything is tired, I still want this. Some breath, an unbroken, ungunnable if. So I'll read the title poem first. I actually have 2 poems called To a New Era in this book, but just read one. I see the light is over here. I'm like reading in the dark for no reason. To a New Era. If history is a circle, how long will it take to lick the lollipop and get to the empty core? Could there be a sentient creature sleeping in its center? A Tootsie Pop mermaid of history? If so, wake her up. Feed her the ghostly bodies created by Twitter bots and conspiracy tambourines. Let her destroy them with her split tongue. Sing to her of babies yet to know the meaning of disgust. Teach her to kick, to run on her fishy tail and karate chop the gears of time until they resemble steampunk frayed metal wings. Here, the radius of the sun can meet the radical endpoint of our hope, buttermilk, dolphin dreams, hot air balloons, oceanic longing and or weeping, and start again as pure immaterial possibility. Love poem in a failed state. Some mornings when I am just a typo in pajamas and the rain is the thick black eyeliner around an unseen sun. The glimpse of your left eye opening under the blankets is enough of a welcome to flip the bird to despair, to allow myself to feel each one of my fingers wiggling itself awake. Abecedarian with butchered catalog. America, I have given you nothing, and now I am butter, carved up to resemble a beauty queen at the Dubuque County Fair. Am I supposed to be nostalgic for the Technicolor era? Dumbstruck by others' gee-whiz narratives, buck-toothed and over-eager for honeysuckle cupcakes on the half-shell? Believe it, forget it. Who cares if the past wears its dirty underwear to every gala, hops the freight train, even though it's going underground, heaving with cash? You can smell its history seeping through, feel its wet toes mucking up the inside of your boots or jizzing up the dance floor, clogging the airways with KKK brand kazoos. Back up for a second. I'm trying to find my brainmobile. Look, we all want more than 51 dust bunnies in our pockets. More than anything, I miss my past life as an unkissed frog. Not for nothing was my teenagehood packaged in pretzel bits and sold for scraps. Truth is, my dream life is overstuffed with pancakes. I wake up each morning pressing the same button, so quit laughing already. Stop holding your hand over your right lung and looking cuter than me. America, admit you stuffed the ballot box with freedom fries and crying face emojis, tough lovage, smart cookware. Try wearing this face paint underwater, then tell me the best way to cry. I don't need another victory to know the wind-up top is rigged. How many more broken windows until we realize our house is the wind? Even the air is X-rated, hidden under police tape. Where were you when this particular yelling started? I was here with a broken camera, waiting for a future to zoom into or out of, to clarify, to somehow unmake sense. So I was an adjunct for a very, 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 very long time. And there used to be a magazine called The Adjunct Commuter, and I stole the title and I wrote a few poems with that title. So this is called The Adjunct Commuter. I'm waiting for the bus and imagine the street is made of money. But it's not the type of money accepted on this planet or any planet. Sometimes I'm waiting for the bus and I see the word new projected on people's faces, but not my own. I am no longer new. What are you if you aren't new? The bus is on the left side and I am on the right. I am waiting for the bus, but I'm only wearing my underoos. And my stuffed cat can't get on the bus because she doesn't have a Metro card, and I'm trying to pay the fare with a wallet full of pigeon blood. It multiplies as it spills through the center of the empty bus, foaming mouths at the edge of bloody waves. My clones wear animal masks, lion, flamingo, toad, while we wait for the bus. The bus is inside my skin, riding my spine. None of us is small enough to get inside it. I don't care where the bus is going anymore, but I want to be on it. Have you ever kissed an august Buddha in the marsupial pouch of a bus? It feels like being the soul of oatmeal, but better. Everyone I've ever loved is on that bus. They are going to a protest, but nobody remembers what the issue is, or the issue keeps changing, like the words on the signs, the name of the candidate, or the name of the war. We are going to the march because we want to be together, but aren't. We are waiting for different buses that don't arrive, waiting for a bus from inside an iceberg. And before we can get on the bus, the icebergs have to melt. We want them to melt because we haven't had sex in 24 and a half days, or because we like to eat grass-fed lamb burgers in the back of limestone stretch limousines that circle Alaska before we can even find a bus stop. It's possible I fell asleep and we are all melting icebergs waiting for the bus, flooding Foster Avenue with salt water and half-frozen chunks of displaced whale spirits. One day, I am waiting so long for the bus that I forget I am waiting for the bus and find myself inventing music, dairy-free bechamel, and urban tetherball. They crown me the biggest shark in the biggest city of the universe, and I'm on every TV channel, big-toothed, grinning, like I'm the host or something. But nobody watches TV anymore. Everyone would rather be writing post-linguistic poetry or studying artisanal Uzuki bean canning. If a woman smiles on TV and nobody watches, yada yada, you know. So I go back to my bus stop. Remember, I should have been waiting for the bus. I enjoy waiting for buses. I'm a bus waiter. There's beauty in waiting for the bus. So, like a lot of men, my husband, Bob, grew a giant beard. He never had a beard before, but he grew one during the pandemic because, we weren't going anywhere anyway. Anyway, so this is about that. It's called Whiskers. Bob's pandemic beard is the new member of our household. He pets it as if there were a kitten crawling across his chin. I say, "How come you can have a beard cat, but you won't let me get a real cat?" A beard cat is no use as a cat. It doesn't jump for the ragged tips of peacock feathers, doesn't wake me up with its wet nose, doesn't crawl on my chest and purr when I hear from my dad that my mom in the Florida hospital isn't getting better. The beard cat doesn't even meow or growl or pounce, it crows at the window. As I pout, the beard cat jumps off Bob's face and swan dives into what I imagine is a moment in our post-COVID future. A silver-lit evening where we are munching shrimp tacos under the multicolored garlands of a Mexican cafe in Mexico, perhaps, or where we are huddling with tourists, admiring Sophie Tauber Arp's dancing Dada dolls at the new MoMA. As we worry about everything, all the past and future deaths ricocheting off the decapitated statues of disjointed piazzas, all the lost possibilities of lips grazing lips, the missed handshakes and hugs free falling into intergalactic tunnels. The beard cat is pirouetting on the rips in time between now and then. It weaves a flag out of the threads it has pulled from continuity, tries to surrender to a dragon with its flame blistering the stratosphere. Each night the beard cat rips the walls off our bedroom, replacing them with a mass of undulating orange paws. Dear beard cat, please forgive me for not loving you enough when all you were trying to do was mark time, to provide a little salt and pepper colored hairtainment to a confined middle-aged couple. When you are finally ready to say goodbye, promise you'll allow me to stroke your pale tendrils one last time. Let me decorate your rough fur with marigolds. So I realized that I have some names here that I do not know how to pronounce. And like this poem is gonna be on the Slow Down podcast, and they just wrote me today and they were like, how do you pronounce Cashmere Funk and Anika Sorensen? And I probably just slaughtered it. But anyway, if anybody knows the Polish biochemist or the golfer, Sorensen, all right, I'm gonna get that from you later and put it on my phone, like pronounced right, because I gotta do that. But I'll just pronounce it wrong for now. And then okay. Lavender. Being in a funk is what the cool people call it. It's the purple that surrounds the scene at the lake. Not sad enough to actually drown. You say, I'm in a funk, and I think you think you're too pretty, too well-groomed, too stylishly disheveled to actually sulk. Have you ever tried drinking a milkshake with a girlfriend in a funk? She just stares at the straw as if sucking on it would allow the whole world into her mouth. When a teenager wears baggy sweatpants all February, her math teacher may ask her if she's in a funk. She's actually just pissed off. Frogs don't get into funks, but toads do. In the Bible, Abraham thought Sarah was in a funk, but she was actually shaking with grief. When her baby arrived, her 100-year-old flesh quivered like a sliced papaya. There is nothing funky about being in a funk. The Polish biochemist Cashmere Funk invented vitamins. The golfer Fred Funk wore a pink skirt to settle a bet with Anika Sorensen. Doing cartwheels or changing the bed sheets are suggested cures for getting out of a funk. To be in a funk is to want to cry, but to be unable to access tears. To be in a funk is to be unable to hear the music in the subway's rattle. If Virginia Woolf had been in a funk, she would have filled her pockets with dead lilacs instead of rocks. So this poem, the title is sort of enjammed. It goes into the first line, called The Cat We Don't Own. Wait, before I read this, I should say I did eventually get a cat, so don't worry about me. Best cat ever, yeah, okay. The cat we don't own sleeps on my chest and doesn't meow. Instead, it murmurs in the voice of my 81-year-old mother who is stuck in a cardiac hospital thousands of miles away. Okay, I admit it's not my mom's actual voice. The sound the animal makes is part growl, part purr, part metallic laugh. It's not really a cat either. It's half cat, half miniature rhino. When I dream, the chimera enters my eye holes and crawls around, searching for a subway car with wings, so we can fly together over the veins of highways and splotchy landfills. As my husband turns away, pulling the blanket towards him, I hold the not cat to my chest, and I can hear my mother's heart under the animal's thick black fur. It's beating too fast, too irregular, so I know that it wants to escape its animal body, wants to stomp its feet in blood-red flamenco shoes, wants to cry out, to borrow the sun's bullhorn, to scream at anyone who'll listen. Okay, so I'm going to end with a few new poems. As Maryrose knows, I'm working on a book called Data Mind, like data and then M-I-N-D. And they're poems that are in some way about the internet, and what that means varies. But okay, so the first one is called The Algorithm Ate My Lunch. Oh, and they're all prose poems. The algorithm ate my lunch. I wanted everyone to feel the way my teeth vibrated. But when I posted my glow-in-the-dark selfie, only the closet mermaids noticed. I didn't blame anyone. I knew the oceans were walking heavy-footed on the land. It was one of those afternoons when I was sure that God was a series of tubes connecting my brain to the torso of a deer. Was it possible that the self was larger than the country that birthed it? Could a mouth open large enough to accommodate the girth of a bloated nation's whale? I hung a sign that read hope on the taxidermied body of an owl and waited for applause. Children gathered around to worship, sticking microchips and slivers of sunlight in its missing, blinking eye. Are you the invisible song that was playing? To wear a blindfold in the algorithmic state, one must trust that the crowd is closer to a mosh pit than an ocean. One morning, your glass of orange is replaced by a beacon of sunlight, and from then on, the square of sadness you carry in your pocket feels heavier. When I was a data point, I posted to a forum a question about the effects of perimenopause, and when the answers came back, I trembled in their presence. My love of the internet was like my love of the city. In each, I wandered underground, smelling of pomegranates and hemorrhoid cream. Yesterday, on the subway, I overheard a woman with a voice like a cartoon parrot complaining of her Macy's coworkers' purchase of a thong for clubbing. The picture shows just what it is, a sack for your dick and balls. Let's read two more. Called It's Not a Language If Everyone Understands It. The problem with living one's life online is there is no problem. You wake up, pet the cat, throw some words into the void, and the next thing you know, your death is sitting right there beside you, wearing a red prom gown and throwing paper airplanes through the window. Is this what you imagined it would smell like when your childhood unraveled? Burnt rose stems, underwire bras. The night you dream about getting fitted for a wetsuit, your teeth grow 3 centimeters. The station wagon buried in the backyard comes to life, demanding open-faced sandwiches and overpriced psychoanalysis. Your mother wakes up in her grave and wants to know why you were storing sanitary napkins in her favorite yellow purse. It's not a language if no one understands it. You want to scream at your lawn gnome, but you don't own a lawn gnome. Yesterday, you tried lining up all of your favorite words in a row as if you were a sous chef, as if God would come around later, combine them into some sort of meal. Finally, these 6 emojis explain your life right now. I know how to wrap myself in other people's mishigas. All morning, I read about the woman from Louisiana who can't stop her son from hiding under the bed. A man in South Korea learning to fish in a hotel bathtub. A child across town who swallowed a whole marshmallow shaped like the Guggenheim. I take screenshots of these strangers' problems and blend them into a banana kale smoothie, drink it from a wine glass with my naked ass deeply sunk in a silk pillow. Afterwards, my body is a pink cloud with winged sneakers. I hover above the data, rain down gossip on other people's pain. This is a kind of freedom, but also what? A kind of tragic happiness like that cowboy who thinks he can lasso transcendence and tie it to his belt buckle? Or like that photo of the lake on fire your student posted as their grinder pic, or at least claim they did. Like everything else, you'll never actually know. Thank you.
Me, I wrote a very strange translation of a chapter of Nonus. I translated it, even though I don't speak Greek. I did that for a while. I recently wrote a bunch of poems about my grandparents coming over from Ireland called steerage. But writing is hard. And sometimes I can't do it.
So yeah, I'm working on the internet book. And then my mom died, so I'm writing poems about that. And then not part of the internet book. And this week I wrote a poem about LA because I was just there. So like a walk poem. A walk poem, thinking about like I just took a long walk and wrote about it basically. Yeah, Silver Lake mainly in LA. Yeah. Because I was just staying there, and it was so weird that there was a lot to write about. It's just like, any walk poem, well, I guess the whole thing about like a walking poem or a derive is like, you're supposed to, like, it's weird that there's no sidewalks and that it's a city, but sort of not, and then, I guess the poem ended up being a lot about the class divide, I guess, but that's not that. That sounds kind of boring, but yeah. And,
like in LA, I, as a white guy, can walk around anywhere and not be worried about being out. Whereas, neighborhoods, not a random guy.
yeah.
Would be able to just walk around.
Yeah, I wasn't there that long, so I was more like literally about my walk and the weird things, like the coffee shop where you need an app to buy coffee and stuff like that. But there was also something like, if you go to the reservoir, there's like say their names like is written on the wire in cloth, which is sort of falling apart. You can't actually see the names. The names are disintegrating, which I thought was interesting. There are a lot of like interesting things that I just saw in my walk that I like to write walk poems. I don't do it that often. I used to teach a class called Walking and Mapping, where we read like situationist stuff about walking, and it was really fun. But it ended up being, my students ended up writing more nonfiction. It wasn't actually that great. I don't teach it anymore. Maybe I'll go back if I know how to teach it better in the future. I don't know. It was like a multimedia class. But so I was sort of thinking about some of that stuff too. and Frank O'Hara, of course. But I don't know. It's a draft. It might, the thing with drafts, at least for me, I don't always keep them. I could spend a lot of time on something and then I decide it's not that good. I don't know until some time has passed.
Share more about writing is hard.
I can talk about writing is hard all day long and all night. On a personal level, writing is hard for me because I have a chronic, progressive, incurable, not going to kill me illness, and that takes up a lot of space in my life. And also, I lack a trust fund, so living indoors takes up a lot of space in my life. And I used to be able to do all the things, and now I can only have a subsection of things I can do. But the biggest reason writing is hard for me is that I'm either writing or I'm not writing, and I'm actually two separate people, a person who writes and a person who doesn't write. And I can't always, and I know from my whole experience writing, when I'm writing, I need to have relatively calm life. I'm not upset, which I'm upset all the time, so it's really boring, but I'm not upset. And I have this feeling of infinite time. You know how on a good day you get up and the world is this expansive, beautiful place? That's where I like to be when I'm writing, and a lot of things take it away for me. And writing is writing is very... If I just wanted to write the same sort of poems that I've always written, writing would probably be easy, but I'm actually not interested in writing anything like the things I've already written, and also not anything like the things other people have already written. You have to be in a really specific place for that to happen, because you have to be able to look at your work and say, oh, somebody else could have done that, or this is reminiscent of this, and then you have to move it as if it's some sort of faceted object, like a prism the light comes through. And so for me, it's really complicated. And also it's like working with a limited vocabulary. And, when I write a poem that's really limited, I have to ban the top 20 nouns and the top 20 verbs and refuse to use all the thes. And I had to ban of for myself for 5 years because of was the devil of my poems. And so that's a burden to put on the page in the writer. And that's why it's hard. Anyone else? We can talk all night about almost anything. Joanna, is writing hard?
I don't think writing is hard. I think it's absurd. Because Denise Duhamel has this poem about how much it would actually cost if you thought about writing a poem. If you got paid per hour, how much it would cost to write a poem. It's ridiculous, right? I could spend 100 hours on
A verb.
yeah, a sonnet. And if anybody who wasn't a poet knew that, they would be horrified, because, right, we live in a culture that values time as money, and poetry is the opposite of that. So it's hard in the sense that you have to accept the fact that you're existing outside of a certain kind of capitalist way of looking at the world. But whatever, It's fun. I don't find it hard in the sense that it's fun. You also have to accept for me, I don't think everyone's like this. I write a lot that's not so great. So I have to accept the fact that, I'm going to have to throw things away. Or just whatever. They're not going to make it into a book. I don't know if that's hard. It's fine. I'm used to it. Yeah. My parents are pretty funny. My mom's dead, but I think, it's interesting. I feel like the poems I wrote when I was young, like a teenage poet, were kind of, New York. Well, not when I was in middle school, I wrote really corny poems. But then in high school, I read a lot of New York school poets, and I started to write some funny poems. And I knew Bob Hirschon, my publisher, who just recently died. He was a very funny poet. I knew his work when I was in high school. I knew him. So I always had that model. Then I remember going to college and, just reading a lot of other things and being like, oh, I'm going to write like a Merwin imitation or just do all sorts of stuff. And they were not good. And they weren't terrible. But like, I remember my friend said to me, your poems don't sound like you at all. You're like so, sardonic, and your poems are just like lyrics. It was just like a stage I was going through sophomore year. And then I was like, oh, you know what? That's true. Why am I doing this? I need to stop. Some sort of snap that I should just, allow more of my personality into my work, which is always why originally, I was so drawn to people like John Ashbery and Frank O'Hara. So that's a long answer.
The short answer is yes. She's always been funny. Because I think she is just astoundingly, charmingly funny in her work.
Well, I mean, I'm Jewish.
That doesn't always work, though. I gotta say, that only works that way in movies. Yes. Does anyone else have any other questions? Charles.
We're coming out of pandemic, and we may never figure one pandemic.
I mean, I think more things are going to be hybrid, right? Like this is being streamed. I know I'm going to co-curate a couple months of Segway in the spring, and that's going to be in artist space, but also, on Zoom and on YouTube. And hopefully, more things will be just in many different forms. As long as I'm not the person doing the technology, I think that's great. But also, I'm a little burnt out on watching things on screens because I've been teaching online now for, 2 years. And I don't know, I'm just tired of being in my apartment, which is why I'm here in person.
My husband, who's around here somewhere, if he's not off smoking pot in the bushes, is always... I organized a reading series for about 10 years when I lived in Portland with the Spare Room Collective. And Eric would go all the time. And he said he appreciated the liturgical aspects of the poetry reading. And that is, you go and you sit and you're expected to listen. But it's, and if you're bored and you're not listening, you can look at whatever's around you. But that it has that for him, poetry readings, even if it's someone he doesn't like, it has a very church-like sense. And I actually agree with him on that. And I think that's entirely lost in the Zoom.
Also, more importantly, if something's terrible, you can roll your eyes at your friend, and you can't do that in Zoom. I could roll my eyes at my husband if he's watching, but more often, if it's on Zoom, it's probably me alone. I could maybe get him to go to a in-person reading, but I can't get him to go to a Zoom reading unless it's me or something. Or maybe Elaine Equi, but that's about it.
I'd go to Elaine's reading, too.
Yeah. Or David, I'll go to David Shapiro's reading.
Any other darling questions, darlings?
Okay, great.
I'm going to take We need to inform you that there is hot chocolate and also cookies, and also and cheese and alcohol objects to put into your hot chocolate. If you would like to we didn't want to force anyone to socialize, so if you need to leave us now, we appreciate it. But I think I'm going to try to convince people to stoke up the fires a little bit, and we'll stand around fire like humans should. We've got to prepare for learning how to stand around fires again. So.
There's books for sale.
Oh, yes, and there are books for sale. If you're only going to buy some books, buy her books. Don't buy my books. Buy her books.
There it is.
Don't buy my books.
They're at my